In the interwar period, Bolshevik-Stalinist regime carried the Dnieper Ukraine by all the circles of hell. It died and rose from the dead, shot and torn, but lived its difficult life, survived and saved a part of Ukrainian had intolerance, courage and pertinacity, the best quality which at the turn of the millennium will be useful during the development of the young Ukrainian state. 1919–1921 was the period of war communism, introduced by Bolsheviks ideologically to mobilize state and society to the victory of communism, destruction of progressive intellectuals and the peasantry, converting state on whitewashed military empire. The result of such activity was the first crisis of the Bolshevik system in 1921, when the main support of the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, the Baltic sailors in Kronstadt came up with the slogans "For the Soviets without communists." Peasantry, lowered to the brutal condition, suffered from Holodomor of 1921–1923. First World was shuddered from the rifle butt pounding on the door, described by Ticino. Groundbreaking 2030s brought some relief. The Bolsheviks retreated from ideological dogmas, trying to promote their own ideas, carried out a policy of Ukrainization, made concessions in the area of economic life on the basis of market economy, New Economic Policy 1921–1928, but at the same time totalitarian system began to form and the cult of one person who grinded and broke national dignity, self-esteem and cultural identity of Ukrainians. At the end of the Civil War and the First World War, Soviet Ukraine remained independent and carried out relatively independent foreign policy. By 1924, Ukraine had its own diplomatic representation offices in the Baltic countries, Switzerland, Italy, concluded international agreements, and though it hadn't its own financial, transport system and army, was legally independent republic. Since 1920, there was a gradual restoration of Russian Empire under the red flags of Bolshevism. On December 10, 1922, the 7th All-Ukrainian Congress of Soviets adopted a declaration on the establishment of the Soviet Union, the Project of Union Treaty. On December 23–27, 1922, the 10th Congress of Soviets offered name Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. On December 30, 1922, the first All-Union Congress of Soviets started the work. In May 1925, the 9th Ukrainian Congress of Soviets approved the new project of constitution the USSR, which legally set joining of Ukraine to the USSR. As a result, de jure Ukraine remained a sovereign republic. De facto, the power of the republic was only in education, culture, and social providing. The new political system came in with the formation of the new state. Since 1922, a system based on the authority of a communist ideology and authority of one person was formed in the Soviet Union. The mainstay of the system were repressive bodies that in civilized countries fulfill law enforcement and human rights protection functions. The courts and police provided the state policy towards their own people. Secret of the Soviet Empire is quite simple: the establishing of the communist ideology as the only true. The Communist Party strengthened the right to the truth. All the other parties were eliminated from the political scene mainly by physical methods. Other methods were overcoming opposition within the Communist Party, gradual substitution of the social structure. Earlier elite of society were scientific, cultural figures and rich adventurous people, but after the October Revolution it was the Communist Party's nomenclature. The Soviet society was in a state of constant class struggle against enemies, national and cultural intelligentsia, and with the external capitalist environment. Leaderism was a cult of one person, Stalin, who became de facto the dictator of the Soviet Union. In 1929, during the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Stalin, he became known as the wisest father of all nations. Starting this year, before the Second World War, three waves of repression. First, 1929-1931. Second, 1932-1934. Third, 1936-1938, swept in Ukraine and all the Soviet Union. And although the party elite contributed to the establishment of the dictatorship of one man, they still tried to remove Stalin from power. Such an attempt was made in 1934 during the elections to the Central Committee of the All-Union Communist Party of Bolsheviks. During the election, Stalin received the least votes. Sergei Kirov received the most votes, but on December 1st, 1934, Kirov was killed. By 1937, the entire Central Committee was cleaned from enemies. Besides the repressions against enemies and political opponents, artists Shuminsky, Kurba, Skripnik, Khvylyovy suffered persecutions too. But the peasantry was announced the most disenfranchised part of the population of the USSR. It has experienced the most pressure from the system. From the interwar 20 years, peasantry passed through two holodomors, 1922-1923, 1.5 to 3 million people were died, and 1932-1933, 7 to 10 million people were died. One can endlessly analyze historical processes that took place in the Soviet Union in the 2030s of the 20th century: collectivization, industrialization, cultural revolution, the struggle against religion, combating and illiteracy, etc. Seek positives and negatives. However, nothing worse of human victims, injustifiable and criminal.